All right, the Obama administration wants to increase the number of refugees accepted into the U.S. to about 110,000 in 2017. But after recent terror attacks, Texas is giving the government an ultimatum. The Lone Star State wants to make sure these refugees are not a security threat, or else it will pull out of the federal program providing aid to incoming refugees and put them in this state. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton joined us right now. I know a lot of states, a lot of governors are exasperated. They don't even get a heads up when refugees are being planted in their state. Ken, why do you think you could stop it?
Well, look, our governor has stepped out and he said, look, if the President of the United States, if the federal government is not going to protect the citizens of Texas, we're going to get out of the program and he's going to protect the citizens of Texas. And so that's where we're headed. And so we've given a withdrawal notice, and if they don't correct the program by the end of this month, we'll be out in January.
So you got 6,700 refugees arriving in Texas between 2015 and 2016. Did you even know about it?
You know what? We knew that we were getting refugees, but what we've insisted on from the very beginning is knowing about where they're from, what their background is, do they pose a threat. We've been unable to get that information either through litigation or just asking. And so it's very frustrating to our leadership, to our governor, to me, that we don't know that information. We think we need it.
So I was stunned by this report, and I know you guys were spurred to action because of it. Homeland Security Inspector General report that we erroneously gave 1,800 individuals citizenship by mistake. They were supposed to be deported. We gave them citizenship. You saw this, and this really got you maybe on the show today, and your governor to take action.
It was stunning, and I think that is what finally got us to move on this. It was the shocking notice that the government doesn't have any idea who they're bringing in, who they're making citizens, and we've already had problems in Texas. We had an Iraqi refugee that was aiding and abetting terrorists in Houston that had to be arrested, and so we know that they're bringing in problems, and we don't have any information on background.
It's unbelievable. Mr. Attorney General, thanks so much for coming here. And if you look at what happened in Germany, that Angela Merkel essentially is saying, I made a mistake letting everybody in. The screening process wasn't adequate. The president's going to have a hard time saying there's a precedent for this. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and I hope this wakes up the President of the United States.
I do, too. Coming up straight ahead, someone please call the PC police. A public college. Well, you know, enough of that story. You know what? I'll talk about this. A public college canceling a barbecue because it was too American. That's a better way to say it. And this coffee maker normally costs $50. Today it's $19. Why? Because we told you that. It's Mega Morning Deal time. And Steve's trying to get an additional coupon.
Now, having said all this, why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask? Well, the choice for working families has never been clearer. I need your help to get Donald Trump's record out to everybody. Nobody should be fooled. He proudly declared himself 100% right to work.
Why are you yelling at me? What did I do? Did I leave the soap out, the seat up? What's going on?
Is that how you get yelled at home? If you leave the soap out and the seat up?
I'm just saying. Every time I hear that clip, I feel like I'm being yelled at. Left the door open.
Tucker Carlson is joining us today from Houston. Tucker, I'm shocked. We're all shocked by the pitch of that particular, I don't know, satellite thing she was doing with somebody, talking to somebody, but it looked like she was really yelling at somebody.
What's going on?
Well, she was, and it's poignant. I mean, when people melt down, the first thing that goes is voice modulation, and it really is like that Saturday Night Live sketch. I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. This is a pattern we've seen for the last year. People who run against Donald Trump tend to go crazy by the end. I mean, you remember Ted Cruz, the most articulate man in the world, could barely speak English. He was shell-shocked. Jeb Bush, I think, is still
Tucker,
a little bit
are you
in a
saying Hillary Clinton has gone crazy?
What I'm saying is that people don't understand, professional politicians, when they lose to Trump, don't understand why it's happening. They honestly, and I mean this with real empathy, actually. Hillary Clinton doesn't understand why anyone would vote for Donald Trump. She sincerely doesn't, because she doesn't understand voters very well. And so it's driving her crazy when she says, why am I not 50 points ahead? She means it. That's the most authentic thing she has said all year.
Right, and if you look at the polls, it's not even up for opinion. They're closing or he's leading in almost all the battleground states. Yes. And 3 weeks ago, if I told you that, you said, well, that's not going to happen. Maybe you'll have a little surge, that's it. But it seems to be somewhat between her health, her missteps, what she did for 4 years as Secretary of State, seems to be catching up with her. And she's shedding millennials like crazy. So she said, called up 1-800-ZAC Galifianakis, and she got between two ferns, got the booking that Tucker Carlson wants so bad. Tell me if this is going to help her.
What happens if you become pregnant? Are we going to be stuck with Tim Kaine for 9 months? How does this work?
I could send you some pamphlets that might help you understand.
Are you down with TPP?
I'm not down with TPP.
No, you're supposed to say, yeah, you know me. Like the hip-hop group.
Don't tell me what to say.
Any regrets over losing the Scott Baio vote?
Not a one.
So it wasn't heartbreaking that...
No.
Yeah, but Chachi. What's the best way to reach you? Email?
What'd you think, Tucker?
I thought it was kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, it was.
But I bet she didn't. I bet she didn't. I mean, there are probably some viewers who will kind of get the irony of it. But how much did she hate it? That's the point. You're reaching the place in the campaign where they're panicking, and there's probably nothing she wouldn't do. If Robbie Mook, her campaign manager, said to her, look, you've got to sing I'm a Little Teapot on stage at the debate because it's going to win over millennials, I think she would do it. And you sort of feel for her, actually, at this point, because the humiliation just doesn't end.
Well, I know that she's working like crazy to get ready for this, to the point where she's pulled herself out of fundraising events and doesn't have anything on the schedule. Do you think there's something behind that? What do your sources say?
Well, clearly there's something behind that, and I wouldn't want to speculate, but it's odd behavior, of course. I mean, her surrogates are speaking in public more than she is at a time when the campaign clearly has taken a turn. I'm not saying she's going to lose. I'm saying she very well could lose, and it's finally dawned on them that, yes, they could lose to Donald Trump. So why isn't she out there? Why isn't she raising money even? I don't know. It's very odd. I think it's a legitimate question. She's not being pressed on it by reporters. She should be. Again, I don't know the answer, but it's not conventional.
Hey, Tucker, what do you think of the internal Obama administration email that revealed immigration officials were really pushing through immigrants so that they can get through the process before Election Day? Exactly, illegal, so they can go and vote.
Yeah, so DHS, a memo said to employees, look, you may need to work overtime because we've got an election coming up. We've got to naturalize people. The implication being, of course, so they can vote. First, I think it's a really big deal. I mean, this is the future of our country. And so the idea that the government is trying to get new voters into the system to pack the electorate in order for Hillary to win is a really ominous thing. But it's also of a piece with our policy going back 50 years. I mean, one of the main points of the massive third world immigration into the United States we've seen has been to bolster the fortunes of the Democratic Party. If the electorate were the same as it was in 1980, obviously, Barack Obama wouldn't have gotten the majority of the vote twice. So this is the essence of their strategy, is to bring people in and make them new Democrats. And I think it's worth speaking up about, because I think it's fundamentally unfair to people who are from here.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so we've seen this email saying try to make as many illegals legal as possible. But why do you think they're then going to wind up voting by November 8th?
Well, because because two reasons. One, the assumption is that the overwhelming majority of first-time immigrant voters vote Democrat. We've seen that for a generation. Okay, that's just true. There are a lot of reasons for it, but it doesn't matter what they are. That's true. And the second reason we know this is because this has been going on for 2 years at least, where the Obama administration has been giving grants to left-wing nonprofits whose whole mission is to register new voters to vote against Trump. This is something that Soros has funded, and that basically conservatives and Republicans have not said anything about for whatever bizarre reason, but they should, because again, this is packing the electorate on behalf of a specific political party. It's wrong.
Tucker, lastly, real quick, in North Carolina, the chaos that's taking place in Charlotte, look at both candidates. The theory is, even in Politico today, that the law and order candidate could benefit in what's turning into a battleground state. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't see how this could be good for Hillary Clinton. I mean, Black Lives Matter, which she has endorsed, has basically pulled off the mask and admitted, yes, it's a racist group that endorses violence. So Hillary Clinton is on the record endorsing them. So how exactly is that good for her? I don't see how it is with normal voters anyway.
See, I like Tucker, Ainsley. You didn't want to have Tucker on.
I'm getting convinced now.
Yeah,
I'm
you're starting to like him.
I'm liking him a little bit more.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the
he woke
best.
up at like
So
7:30
nice,
for us.
Ainsley. You're my favorite.
Well, she was against your appearance
I
until
love
now.
you.
He's taking over the couch tomorrow.
Guess
we'll
what?
be gone.
We're going to be waking up at 7 o'clock tomorrow, even on our Saturday and Sunday to watch you.
How about
tomorrow.
6? He's on at 6.
All right, I'll wake up at 6.
All right. Tucker, have a great day down in Texas.
Thanks, guys.
See you
Bye,
tomorrow.
Tucker.
All right, it is 20 minutes now before the top of the hour. Time for some news with Heather.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to all of you. Parents on edge this morning after an elementary school student tests positive for leprosy. It's a school in Southern California. They're now stressing that other students are not in danger. They say they are taking precautions such as decontaminating classrooms and educating parents about the bacterial disease. They say it's easily treated with antibiotics. The child infected is expected to be okay, but certainly scary nonetheless. A mayor's fists go flying after getting a pie in the face. Take a look at this picture of Sacramento Mayor Kevin Johnson. He was at a charity event when he was attacked by an activist. Witnesses say that Johnson, a former NBA star, then tackled the man to the ground and left that protester black and blue. That protester upset, claiming that Johnson only cares about building a new arena for the Sacramento Kings and not about his constituents. Okay? And do you remember this claim by Hillary Clinton about being broke?
We came out of the White House not only dead broke, but in debt.
Well, guess the nominee isn't dead broke anymore. The Clintons now shelling out nearly $1.2 million for their latest home. Here's a picture of it. And by the way, it's next door to their home in Chappaqua, New York. It would make it their third home. And some are saying it's going to be a weekend getaway for their daughter, Chelsea, and her family. So it could be right next door to Grandma and Grandpa. And those are your headlines.
Nice neighborhood.
Yeah, certainly is beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, in a matter of days, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton would clash on everything from terror to immigration in the first debate. So who has the best handle on those issues? We'll debate that.
And first responders go above and beyond to keep all of us safe, right? Well, coming up next, Steve's going to hit the streets of New York City to give them a surprise that's going to brighten their morning.
Fantastic.
Good job, Steve.
Call me Mr. Coffee.
Quick headlines now. $1 billion deal creating the world's largest hotel chain. Listen to this. Marriott shelling out $13 billion to buy Starwood Hotels. In total, 30 hotel brands now fall under the Marriott with more than 1 million rooms around the world. And my key card doesn't work in any of them. And Target pumping the brakes on its kitty card experiment. Could this be why? Target was testing the child-sized carts at some stores in Minnesota and New York, but decided to remove them because of negative feedback and bruised knees. We're out of ice as a country. Ainsley?
All right, thank you, Brian. Well, Monday night marks the first presidential debate, and 3 topics that will definitely be major points of discussion are terror, immigration, and race relations. How do these candidates stack up on these issues? Well, here to break it all down for us is Jillian Turner. She is a Fox News contributor and former White House National Security Council staff under Presidents George W. Bush and President Obama. Good to see you.
Thanks, Ainsley.
Well, let's break this down because these will be 3 big topics that we're going to hear on Monday. The first one let's talk about is terrorism. Where do these candidates stack up?
So Donald Trump's stance is that on terrorism basically is that this is a #1 priority. He's connected sort of beautifully with a lot of American voters on this issue by being out front, making it something very clear he's going to focus on from very on in the administration. The con to me is that he hasn't put forward a plan to defeat ISIS, which I think it's a golden opportunity for him at the debate to do this. I think people would really respond well to it.
What about Hillary on terrorism?
Her pro is that I think she's got a really good substantive plan that she's put forward for folks. You can log on and look at it for yourself and decide if you think it's viable or not. But she has put a lot of thought into the issue, which I personally like a lot. The con for her is that she has already unequivocally declared she's never going to put boots on the ground in Iraq and Syria ever again. And to me, that hedges in our military options unnecessarily.
What about immigration? Trump said he wants to triple the ICE immigration officers. He's also said that immigration security is national security.
Again, I think emotionally, a lot of people really respond to that in light of the sort of escalating terror threat we're seeing, not just here at home, but abroad, virtually globally at this point. The con there is obviously that sometimes the rhetoric gets a little out of hand. You know, the comments about Mexicans and Muslims is not something that most Americans have responded to well at all. So he's going to have to figure out how to kind of tone that down at the debate. For Hillary Clinton, I think the pro or the con, depending on where you fall on the political spectrum, is that it's most likely going to be a continuation of President Obama's policies. Not a lot of difference between what she's put forward and what we've got going on. So if you're happy today, you're going to like what she says. If you're not, then she's probably not the candidate for you.
Who's better on race relations?
Well, it depends how you want to kind of judge that, right? The obvious pro for Hillary Clinton is that she's nationwide carrying the African-American vote right now. I think the con for her is that she often doesn't come out strong enough in support of our law enforcement. We saw that on Saturday in the wake of the terrorist attacks right down the street here.
You saw it at the convention. She didn't even want officers down on the floor.
Yeah, so that's a real con, I think, and it's not something that's unifying, which is what we're talking about when we talk about race relations in this country. What's going to bring people together? So Donald Trump's really struggling with the African-American vote, but I think on messaging, he comes out very often he comes out very strongly in favor of law enforcement, which is, by the way, not a racial affirmation. That's having faith in the people who put their lives on the line to protect us every day.
All right, you ready to watch on Monday?
I'm excited. It's a big one.
We'll probably have you back on the Kirby Couch next week talking about this. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Coming up next, Steve's going to hit the streets of New York City to wake up America with some fresh coffee. It is Friday. We're going to have a little bit of fun. So what do we do?
Steve, you have an important mission.
Hey, George.
Go ahead. Tell us the mission, Steve.
Yeah. The mission is simple. It's saying thank you. Actually, as I was walking over here to Broadway and 46, this guy named George just said, "Hey, Steve, you love Fox and Friends, right?"
Yes, I do.
And why is it you like Fox and Friends?
Because they speak the truth and they're conservative. I don't like liberals.
Okay, well, you wanted to say thank you to me today.
Thank you, yes.
And thank you very much. And what are you doing?
I'm doing the cooking over here. I'm doing the punch.
That's okay. Thank you very much, George.
Good to see you.
Listen, it's good to see you. It's actually great to see all of these police officers. These are members of the Counterterrorism Task Force. They are working right now here in Times Square. They work every day. We came over. AJ, take a swing around here to show what we brought. We got the guys and gals from Starbucks. They brought us all sorts of breakfast beverages for the men and women just to say thank you, because earlier in the week, after what happened down in Chelsea, we saw some Starbucks employees take some coffee and some breakfast foods and all sorts of things over to the men and women who were doing their best to keep New Yorkers safe, just to say thank you. And so Starbucks, thank you very much for doing this. And the guys and gals over here, they're currently working. They've got guns. They cannot take the coffee. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just set it up right over here. We need about 5 more coffees. Can you do a Frappuccino out of this machine? So we're going to put the coffees right there, and at the conclusion of their shift, go ahead, sir, at the conclusion of their shift, they're going to just come over here, have a cup of coffee, if they like one. Just our way of saying thank you to the men and women who keep us safe each and every day here in New York. All right. Brian and Ainsley, back into you.
I know exactly what you mean, Steve. You want to say thank you, but you also see they're wearing Kevlar and have machine guns. So you don't really know where that right distance is.
They have big guns.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to hold a machine gun and a tall latte.
Right. A lot of people will tell you. That's why they don't bring the lattes to Iraq. Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. He'll be coming in.
Coming up, more unrest on the streets of Charlotte, and one of our own actually caught in the middle of it all.
Where are we going?
We're going to beat your you don't leave me alone. That's where we're going.
Okay.
Geraldo knows exactly what that's like. He's going to join us at the top of the hour.
Yeah, they're lucky that wasn't Geraldo out there right now. They'd still be brawling. There he is.
Good morning to you and your family. It's Friday. It's September 23rd, 2016. I'm Ainsley Earhart. We start with this. It's a Fox News alert. Another night of violence down in Charlotte, and this time a Fox News reporter is caught in the middle of it.
Where are we going?
We're going to beat your ass. You don't leave me alone. That's where we're going.
Okay.
Geraldo has been there. He knows exactly what it's like to be in a situation like that. He's going to join us live to react.
Meanwhile, the first presidential debate is just a couple of days away, and new polls show Donald Trump closing the gap in critical swing states. We're going to break down the numbers. Not all good news for Hillary today.
Then, forget about getting Hillary elected. President Obama may have a bigger problem on his hands. Nancy Pelosi. Yep, Pelosi. Hey, your mornings are better because you're with friends. All right, let's get right to it now. And here we are, a third straight night of protests. It happened in Charlotte last night, but so far, no violence.
This is a Fox News alert. Hundreds ignoring that midnight to 6 a.m. curfew, shutting down a highway and chanting for the release of the footage of the shooting of Keith Scott.
Geraldo is right here on the couch to join us to talk about this situation down there in Charlotte.
You know, I think that the first night was really substandard policing. They were caught by surprise, they were undermanned, and they were much too passive. The second night, though, with the National Guard there and with enormous additional resources from the state troopers, I think they should have brought buses to the highways and made mass arrests. In my day, when I was a demonstrator in Washington, D.C., in 1969, 1970, you know, they would round us up, keep us for a certain amount of time to cool off, clear the streets, and it was the threat of arrest of whether they were going to prosecute, you know, process the, you know, and put an arrest on your permanent record that really deterred at some point. And those were much more massive protests. I think they should have been a little bit more proactive, but I think that, you know, the fact that there was no violence is important.
Sure, although one guy wound up dying, one guy was shot.
That was on night one, right?
Right, exactly. But when you look over the last year or so of protests, let's harken back to Baltimore, where essentially the mayor came out later and said, yeah, we let people loot and riot because...
Blow off steam.
Yeah, blow off steam.
As you recall, I was on the streets of Baltimore, and that was absolutely right and very frustrating to watch. But I must also point out a phenomenon that I've seen evolve. You know, and this is reporting. I have seen a phenomenon whereby night one is relatively spontaneous and local. That tends to be the worst of the initial violence. If there is looting, that's when it happens. By night two, it's not just local people.
The agitators.
By night two, and I've seen this since the Seattle G20 anarchists. It's the same people. Yeah. Then they became Occupy, and now they're Black Lives Matter. But it's really, in some cases, the same folks. When you see a racial protest and you see young white people, I guarantee you they're not local, unless there's a big college right there nearby. They've been flown in. They have a quick response team. It's almost like the military. They're organized. Social media is so vast, so highly evolved. Okay, come to 20th and Raleigh and, you know, 1013. And we'll do such and such. And you can see it. They are just as organized as the police forces that are sworn to protect the citizens.
Well, now we're learning that 70% of the people that are protesting are not even from North Carolina.
Exactly my point, Ainsley. Right.
So yesterday, some of the protests are saying things that aren't nearly as positive as you would imagine. Listen.
Keith Scott! Keith Scott! Trayvon Martin! Trayvon Martin! Sandra Bland! Sandra Bland! Emmett Till! Emmett Till! These are the people that we're fighting for, so many, many more that I can't even name the names. They could go on forever. But these are the people that we're fighting for. These are the people that we're marching for. People that we're standing up for. So don't be scared. Don't be scared of the revolution. There can't be revolution without a little bloodshed. So we have to shed a little blood, so be it.
Shed a little blood.
I think that fellow is a wannabe. I really do believe that we have to go back to what's going on here. You have two things happening. You have this gigantic epidemic of black-on-black violence, and it is a serious problem also in the Latino community, not quite as egregious, but you have the black on. That creates a climate. So you bring in the cops.
Things are already tense.
You bring in the cops to those neighborhoods, and the cops see the worst of us in terms of they see, people being killed on a nightly basis. They come to generalize about an entire class of people and consider them a menace, young black thugs, quote unquote. They become a menace, so the cops respond. They are trained to respond, and they also conditioned by their environment to consider people that now they're not just after someone for what they are doing, they're after someone for who they are. That's what leads you thousands and thousands of black-on-black deaths, but you also have hundreds of blue-on-black violent encounters that lead to these tragic situations.
Why is this happening in 2016? Was this a problem in 2000, in 1995, in 1990? Why is all of a sudden this thing, the stats don't read out that this is an epidemic that's growing in America? Why are we reacting like it is?
I think that's a brilliant question. And I think it exactly tracks with the evolution of social media. Nowadays, you get to these situations, and every one of them is in communication with every other one of them.
You're saying it's like a flash mob.
It started socially. It has now been, and Occupy really evolved it, and Black Lives Matter picked up on it. It has turned out to be the MO. Now what police are doing, the smart departments, confronted by these kinds of situations, like the NYPD, they monitor all of these social media sites as soon as they find them, because this is a kind of more benign version of the threat to us from terrorists. What if terrorists are as evolved? What if this schmuck from Jersey that allegedly blew up the bomb in Chelsea last week, what if he had his colleagues, and he may have, we still don't know, and they were also social media, okay, I'm going to blow mine now on 23rd, you blow yours on 27th, you blow yours on around the shore with the Marines, their race, their marathon, all right, you do one on Long Island, you do one at the airport, okay, ready, okay, go Joe, go Ahmed, go Harry. I think that this is something we must be just as evolved, just as technically have prowess as the bad guys.
Geraldo, are you in favor of stop and frisk? Because Donald Trump says he wants to bring it back. We had Mayor Giuliani on yesterday, and he was saying it really worked when he was the mayor of New York.
That's a great question. I think that New York is the model. New York used stop and frisk. It caused a lot of friction, but it helped accelerate the downturn in crime. Although Chicago does have a modified version of it, I would suggest that Donald Trump is exactly right in a city like Chicago, where there is an emergency, where someone is being killed, every 12 hours.
500 homicides is...
So it's okay. So you've got to, it's what, every 20 hours or so.
Right.
I think that in that situation, if you have a group of people on the corner, the cops should have the right to go up and say, okay, what do you got? What's going on? What's that bulge there?
It's all about... You're a lawyer. It's all about reasonable suspicion. If a guy's walking the beat and he sees somebody, it does look like that guy's got something right there. Why not?
The counter argument is racial profiling, but if you have black on black violence or brown on brown violence, or if you have inner city violence, that's what you've got to do. You're not going to go stop and frisk the 73-year-old lady in the wheelchair. Obviously, it's a deflection of resources. Let's be practical about it. Let's do what we have to do. I know that stop and frisk by one federal judge in New York was found to be unconstitutional, but the NYPD never appealed that verdict
because we switched mayors.
So we switched mayors. So we got a hard left-wing mayor who said, "I'm not appealing. I'm dropping it. You win." We should really have an appellate court litigate what is appropriate for police when confronted with an emergency, because there is no doubt that inner city violence is an emergency, but not in every city. We know the cities: Newark, New Orleans, Detroit, Cleveland, Baltimore, now Chicago. We know the cities. I think that we have to be practical about it. I also think, however, that you cannot ignore the fact that hundreds of black men are being killed by cops. Hillary is right in that regard. Trump is right in the big picture, the climate that's created. But I think the answer lies somewhere in between.
Well, when you look at what happened in North Carolina, in the video, we don't know whether or not it's going to be released, but according to the police chief, ABC is reporting this, the police chief has looked at the video. You can clearly see the guy holding a gun when he's outside of the car. You just can't can't tell whether or not he points the gun in the officer's direction, and that's why the family has questions.
One of the least favorite mayors, certainly on the Kirby couch in this country, is Rahm Emanuel of Chicago. Rahm Emanuel of Chicago, best friends of President Obama, almost lost his mayoralty because of the refusal or the sloppy release a year after the fact of the video of the shooting of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald.
Right.
The video, had that been released earlier, it would have, the anger would have dissipated. Everything. It would have changed everything. They could have done remedial steps, but they hid it. Finally releasing it, and it shook the administration in Chicago to its core. Why not release this video?
I don't know.
Why not? What is the logic of not releasing it?
It's the body cam that they don't want to release.
They say because we're in the middle of an investigation. I don't know how that could hurt the investigation.
I'm a lawyer. It doesn't matter.
But the family saw it. Does that help?
And the family is suggesting that it be released, Brian. Doesn't that tell you everything? I understand not releasing the names of GIs who get murdered or get killed in action until their relatives are notified. I understand that. Same with the police action. The relatives in this case, however, have seen the video. They have signed off on it. Release the video.
We're going to have the governor of North Carolina on the program in a half an hour.
Governor McCrory?
Yep.
Give him my regards.
Geraldo, have a good weekend.
Thank you.
All right, let's hand it over to Heather, who has some headlines for us. Hey, Heather.
I certainly do. First story coming out of Oklahoma this morning. The female police officer who shot and killed an unarmed black man in Tulsa, charged with first-degree manslaughter. Watch this. That dash cam video sparking national outrage, showing Terrence Crutcher with his hands in the air before Officer Betty Shelby shot him. She says she opened fire when she saw Crutcher stick his arm through an open window of that car, but Crutcher's family attorney says an enhanced picture of the window shows it was closed. Officer Shelby faces between 4 years and life in prison. The terrorist suspect Ahmed Rahami's dad telling the feds, "I told you so." Mohammed Rahami just spoke to the Associated Press, and he claims that he warned the FBI that his son had, quote, become bad, saying that he was showing interest in terror groups, including Al-Qaeda. His dad telling the FBI about his son's fascination with jihadi videos as well. Rahami remains unconscious in the hospital in critical but stable condition. Is Brad Pitt an abusive father? The FBI now investigating that. He's being accused of getting into a fight with his 15-year-old son Maddox on a private jet. A source says that that's why Jolie Pitt finally filed for divorce. Witnesses say that Pitt was drunk and out of control when he started screaming at his children. Someone on the plane allegedly called Child Protective Services, but they're going through a messy divorce right now. He sparked national outrage for disrespecting our national anthem, and now Colin Kaepernick is being celebrated on the cover of Time magazine. Time calling him the, quote, obvious choice for its cover because his national anthem protest movement has spread so far. But the former Indiana basketball coach, Bobby Knight, the legend, doesn't think so. Listen.
Were I a teammate, were I the coach, were I the owner in a situation like that, I'd have gotten rid of the guy. That's a distraction. We don't need a distraction like that. Our team has got to get together. We've got to have our team play. And now we've got a terrible distraction, a tremendous distraction.
And team is supposed to be about team, not the individual. And those are your headlines. That was from earlier today. What an interview that was. That was terrific.
Yeah, a lot of people agree with him.
Yeah,
thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Heather. All right, the first presidential debate is just a couple of days away, and we just got our hands on brand new polling. So who do they favor, the people that were polled, Mr. Trump or Mr. Clinton? Ed Henry's going to break down the results in 90 seconds.
How did he get a new headshot, Ed Henry? Hey, Ben, a little bit. Hey, forget getting Hillary elected. President Obama may have a bigger problem on his hands. Her name? Nancy Pelosi.
Yep, there's the countdown. 46 days from Election Day. The pressure is on Hillary Clinton.
Yep, another round of swing state polls showing Donald Trump closing the gap.
Somebody who's been looking at him this morning is Ed Henry, who joins us right now live from the Bureau in Washington, D.C. Ed, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Donald Trump's still surging, and yesterday he had battlegrounds like Pennsylvania all to himself. As Hillary Clinton took another day off, Trump deciding to go to Philadelphia, where he grabbed a cheesesteak at the world-famous Geno's, even though everybody knows that Pat's Steak across the street, sometimes known for being a little bit better. But the Republican mocked Clinton's light schedule by saying while her aides claim she's in debate prep right now, maybe, Trump said, she's just sleeping in because of that recent health scare. Trump made up a lot of ground in August as Clinton took most of the month off for fundraising, and that may be playing out again in these polls. Look at Quinnipiac in Colorado, where Clinton had a strong lead. She's now barely ahead, 44% to 42%. Something to watch also is how Libertarian Gary Johnson impacts this race. He gets 10% in Colorado. Meanwhile, Iowa as well, Trump now with a strong edge. He's leading there. 44% to 37% in Iowa. Again, Johnson at 10%. But then in Virginia, Clinton may be starting to lock down a key state for her. Leading Virginia 45% to 39%. Johnson gets 8%. Again, he's having a big impact. Overall, Trump says he feels momentum. As Tim Kaine declared, that could be stopped if the Republican is all sizzle and no steak in Monday's debate.
A lot of states have us way, way up. People are starting to get a little bit nervous, folks. They're starting to get nervous.
But we'll see what happens. Look, I think we're going to win this thing. I think people are tired of what's happening in this country.
I think you're going to see a performance that may well be entertaining, but without a lot of, and here's how we're going to get there, backing it up.
Now, Democrats demanding policy details from Trump, but he told our own Lou Dobbs just the opposite. He said it's a mistake to lock yourself in a cabin for 3 weeks studying because you'll end up with lockjaw in a debate. Let me send it back to the beautiful Ainsley and the two old guys.
Thank you very much. Wait a second. Yeah, that was
Checks in the mail,
That was Bobby Knight. I'm just quoting Bobby Knight.
I know. Wasn't he so nice?
You're just the Knight repository.
Yeah, go ahead and tweet that out. All right? Thanks a lot.
I'm going to do it right now.
That means you were watching.
Hey,
We
Steve,
appreciate that.
The other thing to bring up, do you know who is playing Mike Pence? Who is playing Mike Pence in the debate prep?
Who would that be?
That is Bob Barnett.
The legendary.
So he does it for every he plays every Republican for a Democrat. So he's doing it again.
So they're getting ready. The big show Monday night.
All right, coming up. Did you see this?
Said all this. Why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask?
Why is she yelling at me? Jeanine Pirro usually yells at me. The judge will be here. I'm going to see who yells louder.
The judge.
Also, look at that, guys. That towel right there, normally $130, but this morning, yep, you're only going to pay $40. The exclusive Fox & Friends Mega Morning Deals next.
I'm out of Terry Cole.
Q, do you have any idea where we're going?
That's me. Yeah, I know where you're going.
Where are we going?
We're going to beat your you don't leave me alone. That's where we're going.
Okay, so where we're going, I don't think anybody knows where they're going right now. I think they're just marching all over town.
Well, it was believed there was going to be a curfew last night from midnight to 6 a.m., and Judge Jeanine Pirro joins us right now. What do you make of, as it turns out, the curfew was not enforced. As long as everybody was peaceful, they could stick around a bit.
Right. Last night was more about protests than it was about riots. I mean, but I think that what the police have done is they've made a decision that we're going to try to be as low-key here as possible so that it doesn't appear that there is this fight going on, and although it was horrific. What happened on Wednesday night was horrific. I think all Americans needed to take stock of the rioters. I mean, these were not protesters. They were rioters. They were people who were tearing the fabric of our community apart. They were anarchists.
There were a lot of out-of-town agitators. The cops say down there 70% of the people they arrested had out-of-town IDs.
Right. Is that any surprise? I mean, what these people do is they go around the country to make trouble. And it's the people in the community who suffer. The African-American community. The African Americans who are victims of their own crime, of black-on-black crime. And what they're doing now is they're disrupting a society, and they're disrupting the peaceful society that people want, and they're creating their own narrative.
Judge, what are they protesting? Because in the beginning, remember, it was Black Lives Matter. They felt like black people were getting killed by white cops. But here in Charlotte, it's a black officer.
It's a black cop, a black person who was shot. What they want is just us to make trouble. You see, they need this narrative for the election. This is all about the election. Black Lives Matter and this whole movement funded by Soros is all about the Democratic election, giving the Democrats some reason to join together to come out and vote for the Democratic Party. It's why these illegals who were supposed to be deported were given citizenship. It's why there is this movement to get people to vote and sign up to be citizens. That's what's going on right now. It's all about the election.
Judge, what could be the reason why the body cam camera and the dash cam camera video is not out? What could be the reason there?
Well, the reason that it's not out, first, Brian, think about the fact. You've got the DA's office, you've got the State Bureau of Investigation, you've got the DOJ, the FBI, and Internal Affairs. That's a minimum of 5 law enforcement organizations or agencies looking at this case. There will be a grand jury investigation as sure as I'm sitting here right now. I've done these cases. The one thing you don't want is to get the evidence out so people start tailoring their testimony to what they think they see in the video, or someone putting themselves in the situation. The video will then make it clear what happened. If some person comes out and says, I saw this, well, the video doesn't show that. It's a truth-telling system where we can say who's telling the truth and who isn't. And by the way, the law is clear. They passed a law saying October 1, you cannot get this without a court order. There's a reason for that.
Well, we're not up to October 1st, so we're going to talk to the governor about that in a little bit. But first, you mentioned the election. Hillary Clinton not doing well with millennials. And you look at the four-way races, Gary Johnson's got 10% pretty much across the country.
Right.
She's doing her best, including sitting between two ferns with a very funny guy with some hard questions. Watch this.
What happens if you become pregnant? Are we going to be stuck with Tim Kaine for 9 months? How does this work?
I could send you some pamphlets that might help you understand.
Are you down with TPP?
I'm not down with TPP.
No, you're supposed to say, yeah, you know me. Like the hip-hop group.
Don't tell me what to say.
Any regrets over losing the Scott Baio vote?
Not a one.
So it wasn't heartbreaking that...
No.
Yeah, but Chachi. What's the best way to reach you? Email?
If looks could kill. She seems to be a good sport there.
Well, you know, she's a good sport. Really, the woman, if she's a good sport, she should be out campaigning. This was time so that she could get 3... Why? Because, first of all, she's not up to the job. She doesn't have the stamina. What she's doing is she's got these 3 days off to prepare for the debate, and this was time so that this would get the attention it needed to get while, you know, Donald Trump is out there meeting with people, tens of thousands at a clip, and, you know, she figures she'll get the attention through this.
I think Donald Trump would be great on this. However, the producer came out and said that Donald Trump doesn't have, his too thin a skin to
and he hasn't invited him.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't invited him. I mean, thin skin. I mean, the guy, nobody would be able to mess my hair up on national television.
Yeah,
but you know,
tried it once. You hit him.
Huh? Did you try it? Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you didn't try it. I mean, it's kind of hard at this point.
By the way, we should also point out the thing between the two ferns was actually taped on the day it was announced that she had, I think the day she was diagnosed with pneumonia.
Yeah, she didn't look too good there either. You know, she hasn't looked too good lately. She looks very low energy. It's almost a Jeb Bush thing going on with Hillary.
Right.
Well, let's see how she looks on Monday, because she's going to be out in public that night.
Oh, she'll be fired up, I'm sure. She'll have 4 days of rest. It's like a vacation.
We're going to be watching you this weekend.
Yes, on Justice this weekend, I go to Modell's. You know, all this issue about Hillary and her health and the age of the presidential candidates. I went to Modell's to find out what people think about whether or not our candidates are in good health.
Gotta go to Moe's. We watch a lot of commercials.
Yeah. All right.
Judge,
thank you Saturday night.
That's right. All right, let's hand it over to Heather, who has some headlines for us.
I certainly do. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Let's start out in Washington, D.C. right now. We're getting justice for victims of terror attacks. And there is now a rare showdown between Nancy Pelosi and President Obama. The House Minority Leader joining a bipartisan effort to override a pending presidential veto of a 9/11 bill that would allow victims' families of the 9/11 terror attacks to sue Saudi Arabia for its alleged involvement in planning the terror attacks. The president has until midnight to veto that bill. It would be the first congressional veto override ever for President Obama. A big story. We'll follow that one throughout the day. Here in New York, leaders around the world gathering at the UN in the city, but the Prime Minister of Israel says it is all a big joke. Listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the UN, begun as a moral force, has become a moral farce.
Wow. Benjamin Netanyahu criticizing the United Nations for what he describes as its obsessive bias against Israel. He called the UN General Assembly a disgrace and the UN Human Rights Council a joke. Well, parents on edge this morning after an elementary school student tests positive for leprosy. When's the last time you heard of leprosy? The school in Southern California stressing that other students are not in danger, but nevertheless that district taking precautions, decontaminating classrooms, and educating parents about that bacterial disease. We're told it's easily treated with antibiotics. The child who is infected is expected to be okay. And just 2 minutes away from the hospital, a dad jumping into action when his daughter decides that she is ready to be born.
Oh, the baby's coming out.
Okay.
The baby's coming out. What do I do? The head is already out. All the head is already out.
It's coming out. Well, before he knew it, his daughter making her debut in the passenger seat of their SUV on the side of the highway in Texas.
It's okay, baby. It's okay, baby. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, baby. It's okay, mommy. It's okay. It's okay. You're out already, mommy. You're out. It's okay, baby. Yeah.
You're doing a really good job. Listen carefully, and I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
He sure did do a great job. That new proud dad joked that they should name the baby Happy, Healthy Toyota. Toyota, because I guess that's the car that they were in. They decided to go with Julietta instead, which is a beautiful name. Congratulations to that couple and that beautiful little girl.
No offense, but I think, he did a good job, but it's really the woman that deserves all the credit.
Right?
I mean,
No medicine either.
help another.
And the
One
dispatcher.
another calm. It was a team effort.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
All right, Heather,
Thanks,
thank you.
guys.
Well, a third night of unrest on the streets of Charlotte, North Carolina. Protesters flat out ignoring the midnight curfew. So what's being done about that? North Carolina Governor and former Charlotte Mayor Pat McCrory joins us live next.
And he's turned his faith into Grammy-nominated music.
So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are.
I have that song downloaded on my phone, and I love it. Look who's in our green room. Crowder has a brand new album dropping this morning, and he is here to perform.
Fox News alert as you wake up today. Hundreds of demonstrators last night filled the streets of Charlotte for yet another night of protest, ignoring a midnight to 6 a.m. curfew and shutting down a highway, that one right there, chanting for the release of the dash cam and body cam footage of the shooting of Keith Scott.
Joining us now with the latest is the former mayor of Charlotte and the current North Carolina governor, Pat McCrory. Thank you so much for being with us, Governor.
Thank you for having me.
Is that tape ever going to be released to all of us?
Well, let me first say that I am so proud of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and I'm also very proud of our National Guard that I thought did an outstanding job last night under very, very difficult circumstances. And I want to also thank many of the community leaders and neighborhood and faith leaders who stopped confrontation between the Guard and the police and frankly, some anarchists who want to cause just damage and harm to our state and our nation. And it was a team effort under very trying circumstances where you have 300 protesters on national TV, on 3 networks, total coverage, cameras everywhere. And I'm proud of the community, I'm proud of the state, the way we handled a national issue that just happens to be on camera in our state at this point in time.
We definitely support law enforcement. But what about the tape? Are we going to be able to see that soon?
I hope we get to see that soon, but there's one dilemma, and that is the constitutional rights of our police officer. And both the police chief and the Mecklenburg DA feel very strongly that during an ongoing criminal investigation, that the police officer also has protection of evidence, and so a fair trial could be heard. So we're going through that process. That's one reason we changed the state law toward on October 1st, which is to take the politics out of the release of videos and let a judge determine the balance between the community's right to know versus the constitutional protection of the criminal process. Because this is a criminal investigation right now.
Governor, have you seen the tape?
No, and I'm not going to watch the tape. We've got enough people watching. I'm going to let the criminal justice system do their job and keep the politics out of it as much as possible.
But they did. The law enforcement did say, hey, he had a gun, and this is what we did, and I'm happy with what I saw. So they are weighing in.
Yeah, that's one reason I'm not going to weigh in. I'm going to let the judicial process proceed out of respect for again, most of us would love for the tape to get out as soon as possible, but we do have to respect the constitutional process, especially of the police officer there is a criminal investigation right now.
Indeed.
And we have to take that extremely seriously, not just for this police officer, but all police officers that go through this process, or we're going to lose their confidence also.
Governor, you mentioned politics. A politician, now he's a politician. Donald Trump apparently, well, he tweeted out, spoke with Governor McCrory of North Carolina. He's doing a tremendous job under tough circumstances. What else did you all talk about?
We actually talked about, listen, I've had a very positive conversation with both Donald Trump and with the president, both yesterday, and I explained the situation to both Mr. Trump and the president in explaining the dynamics that are occurring. I told them both that we have some anarchists who do not have legitimate reason to protest. We have other protests that are doing an incredible job of expressing their viewpoint, which needs to be heard. And I'm also told them about the courage of our police officers and our National Guard.
All right. Governor McCrory, thank you very much. We know you got your hands full down there this week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, coming up, do you need a pick-me-up this morning? If so, here you go.
So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are.
Coming up next, Christian singer Crowder is going to perform a song from their new album. It's called Run, Devil, Run.